Monday morning Jumpstart. We are back. Hi, Ted. How you doing?
Good morning, Jade. I'm doing well. Hope you are too.
I'm fantastic. This is a big topic. I feel like it's something that a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with, and that is feedback. I know you have a lot of opinions on how to give constructive feedback. What do you feel about receiving feedback? Any advice for people that I know I'm not very good at it. I'll be the first to admit.
Let's peel this one back. We'll get to the receiving feedback, but I guess there's probably a couple different things we should hit when we unpack this feedback. There's the first piece would be, are you even getting any? Right? Because that's the first thing that I'd want everybody to consider. I often go to leaders, Jade, and I said, how often does your team give you feedback? And what do you think the answer is?
Hardly ever, zero. Everyone's
not often. And that's where we have to start, because if you're not receiving feedback, there's probably one of two things happening, or both. The first, you're not being proactive in soliciting feedback. So you're not going out there and saying, hey, I want you to tell me and give me feedback. Or the second one, which could go hand in hand, you've received some feedback in the past and you didn't respond so appropriately. So now feedback is not coming your way. And feedback is essential. It's essential to growing your business. It's essential to growing as a human being. And so we have to first consider, are we getting any? And the first thing to do there is go out and start to solicit feedback. And we talked 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about the idea of community. You're going to be seeking feedback from different layers of people, right? In different corners of what you need and whatnot, but you're going to have to go out there and solicit it. Now, when receiving feedback, right, there's a couple things that you need to do. And the very first thing you need to do is just take a deep breath, right? Calm your body. Here's what happens. As human beings, when we hear something that doesn't line up with ourselves, we have a reaction, right? Some reaction, people's lips quiver. Some's necks get blotchy. I mean, I'm probably a bunch of people are probably smiling here because they've been in conversations where somebody's necks got blotchy, or they shut down and they just give you that glare where you know nothing's landing or whatever. So what I want you to do is to take a deep breath, right? And then I want you to prepare yourself to just listen. Just listen, right? The first meeting, in this initial piece where you're getting the initial feedback, I don't want you to respond too much. I want you to thank the person for the feedback. If it lands well with you, then let them know, hey, this was really helpful. I'm glad you took the time to do that. If you need more specificity, ask for it, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of that, say, hey, you know what? Could I circle back tomorrow after I digest what you gave me so I could really start to understand, and then talk about what I need to do to self-correct some of this stuff. But we have to listen. So now there's the other side of feedback, right? And we touched on this now last week. We talked about asking questions of clients. Well, let me give you something else that could be a game changer for you. If you learn how to ask great questions and fill the gaps of people's needs, help them, et cetera, will you be the one to give that high-powered CEO feedback that everybody else is scared to give them, right? And so there's the idea of receiving feedback here, but there's also the idea of you giving feedback. Because what happens for a lot of solopreneurs is you become order takers, and you go in there and you uncover their need, and then you just go to work and you try to fulfill the need. Meanwhile, along the way, you may stumble across something that is way off, and it might not be in your purview, but you have a strong opinion about it. But you know what? I'm not going to give the feedback to that CEO. Why? Because I'm fearful that he'll fire me. Well, here's what I have found over and over and over again, almost daily for me. When I give the feedback, I'm building trust and people respect me more. So it's not like and then it lends itself to how you give feedback. It's not like you just come in there with a malice intent and go, hey, I want to point out to you, Jade, that this is wrong. You say, hey, Jade, I've really grown to love your business. And so what I'm going to give you might not be easy for you to hear, but I really want your business to continue to succeed. And so I want to point something out to you. So you come in there and you state the intention. And you take the intention, you state the intention, and then you start giving the feedback, and then you offer, help or the access to follow up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this feedback thing there's two sides to it. and they're both really critical. Both, I think we have to consider both sides of it.
Well, and this is the thing. So I talk about this all the time. We are not in the business of creating hobby writers. We are in the business of creating successful writers. There are some certain paths that you can go down where you're clientless, but the majority of people, in order to be successful as a copywriter or content writer, whatever you want to be, you're going to have clients. And I've never seen one piece of copy heard of any single person, top copywriters in the world, that just send in a draft and nothing comes back, right? And the reason I say that is because if you're going to get into this world, feedback is going to come to you no matter what. That means that you are in business. Getting feedback on your copy means that you are in business, which we want you to be. And I think it is difficult because it's art, right? I believe and feel like writing is art. And so many people can take it as like insulting, like somebody doesn't love my art, And I'll never forget Marcella Allison always said, she said, like, what has grown her to be better has been always asking for the like the really critical like feedback as much as they can give, and she goes from whoever will give it to her, because that's how she grew. Obviously, people in the ring with you, not like just strangers. And then she said that you are not your copy. So when they're talking about like they don't like this, or let's change that, they're not talking about you. They're just talking about the writing. She said it's much easier when you can separate, yourself from that. And so I also want everyone to know the greatest of greatest copywriters get that nobody's first draft is a final draft. There's always back and forth. Like, we work with some amazing people, but there's always, always, always back and forth, because like we talked about last week, the intention of everybody that is looking at this, everyone has the same intention at the end of the road, right? And that is to make the best possible piece that is going to be successful, that is going to provide solutions. And everybody helping you wants you to be a success as a copywriter, like they want the package or whatever you're creating to be a success. So I think that when you can think about feedback, it's coming from the same team. It's not a you against me. It's like we're all in it together. It also changes the way that it feels,
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to this. The one other note that I do want to make is that, because we're even doing it right now. We're talking about feedback as if feedback's all constructive, and it's not, and it should not, and it should not be. And there's a lot of studies around this that, I could use my kids' football team as an example. Like, it's a real example that's happening in my life. I'm trying to teach these coaches that they need to give a lot more affirmation, and and affirmation by the way of feedback, right? And so I want everybody to grab that. You want people in your corner that are giving you both, right? Both positive and affirming, or affirming feedback as well as constructive feedback. But also think about that in the way that you're approaching your clients. You want to give them constructive feedback, but also a way to build the bridge to have that constructive feedback is to give them very valued affirmation. So, and the reason I say very valued, I want you to give very specific affirmations when you see it, right? Something very specific. I don't want you to give general, and I don't want you to give artificial. So I don't want you to do the whole brown nose and just tell people they look good because it's that, I want you to get very specific. So I just want to throw that out there, that sometimes when we hear the word feedback, it gets a negative connotation. And there's two sides of this. There's the affirmation part, which you need to be eagle eye and looking for places to give specific and not artificial affirmation. And then there's the constructive side.
Love that. And to take us back to a couple of weeks ago when we talked about community, I will say that is an amazing part about AWAI communities, is that if you ask for feedback in them, people are going to give it to you. And I feel like it's a safe zone of people in the same space and looking to help you, right? So I think I would take advantage of that. And I'd said, what do you need in that, So some people, that's what you need. And that's a place to get it before you go out there and put out whatever you're wanting to put out there. So, yeah. Okay, Ted, anything that people should be thinking about this week as we come up?
Yeah, going back to that original, first thing, are you getting feedback? And if not, then you need to go out there and solicit. I would venture to say that most of us, and I'm including you and I in this, we don't get a lot of feedback.
No.
You know, most people don't get a lot of feedback, maybe from the people that care about us the most,
Yeah.
shoot us straight. But we have to be intentional about going. So first ponder that, and then go out and start seeking feedback from people.
Okay, cool. And next week, we're going to touch on knowing what you do, knowing who you want to serve, staying focused, all these amazing things. And we'll see everybody then. Thank you, Ted. Bye.